The moment Dr. Alana Brooks stepped into Maisonverne, the most exclusive French restaurant in the district, she felt the temperature change, not the air, but the stairs. People paused mid-conversation, forks hovering, as if a shadow had drifted across the candlelit walls. She adjusted 6-month-old Lila on her shoulder and walked toward the podium with quiet dignity. Behind the podium stood Heather Collins, the hostess who treated that stand like a throne. Her pearl necklace shimmered under the chandelier as she looked up, then instantly down at Alana, scanning her from shoes to baby bag like a security dog sniffing for threats. "Yes?" Heather said, with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Can I help you?" "Good evening," Alana replied, keeping her voice soft, professional. "I have a reservation. Dr. Alana Brooks' party of 2. Heather didn't even look at the computer. "There's no reservation under that name," she said brightly. Alana pulled out her phone. "I have the confirmation right here." Crack. The sound sliced through the elegant dining room. Like a bullet, Heather's hand had snapped across Alana's face with stunning speed, the smack echoing off the crystal walls. Baby Lila jerked in her arms and burst into instant, terrified screams. "Don't you touch my podium," Heather hissed. "This is a place for premium guests. You people are always trying to sneak your way into places you don't belong." For a moment, silence swallowed the restaurant. Then whispers began. Glasses trembled in hands. Several diners raised their phones, hesitating. Should they record? Should they intervene? A gray-haired couple near the window stared in shock. The wife clutched her chest as if witnessing a crime, which she was. Alana's cheek burned, but her posture remained firm. "I would like to speak to your manager." Heather laughed cold and loud. "Oh, I'm sure you would." Mark Rowley, the manager, approached from the dining room. He looked between them, baby crying, Alana trembling, Heather smiling sweetly, and his face drained. He knew Heather's behavior. Everyone did. But his mortgage, his 2 kids in college, those mattered more than justice. "Is everything okay here?" he asked weakly. Heather leaned in close to him. She tried to force her way in. "No reservation." Caused a scene. Alana held out her phone again. "Sir, I have proof." But Mark stepped back, palms raised in surrender. "Let's all calm down." Heather smirked. She had won again, but tonight was different. Tonight, the room wasn't silent. Phones were raised. People were watching. And someone whispered, "This is wrong. Someone needs to do something." They didn't know the night was just beginning, but what nobody expected, what not even Alana imagined, was how far Heather would go next, and how one lie would unleash a storm that would shake the whole city. 8 hours earlier, before the slap, before the chaos, before the world turned its camera toward her, Dr. Alana Brooks stood in her quiet townhouse kitchen, packing little Lila's diaper bag with the precision of a surgeon. The sun streamed through the windows, painting the room gold. The coffee machine hummed softly. On the refrigerator, held by a tiny magnet, hung a faded photograph. Alana, her late husband David, and a newborn Lila in his arms. All 3 smiling. All 3 alive. That night tonight was supposed to honor his memory. She placed diapers, wipes, a small pink blanket, Lila's favorite plush lamb, and a bottle into the bag. She paused, exhaled, and ran her fingers across the framed photo on the wall. Her medical school graduation. Another frame showed her receiving the award for youngest chief of pediatric surgery, Western Children's Hospital. Another displayed her and David at their wedding, laughing as if they had forever, but forever had ended quickly. One rainy night, one reckless driver. And suddenly she was raising their daughter alone, performing life-saving surgeries by day and surviving grief by night. Her phone buzzed. A message from the hospital board secretary, Dr. Brooks, confirming Monday's meeting. "Your budget proposal looks excellent." Alana smiled faintly. "Thank you, Barbara. I'll be there." Then her eyes drifted to the email that truly mattered tonight. Reservation confirmed, Maisonverne table for 3, 1 adult. 1 infant seat, 1 high care request. Table 14, overlooking the candlelit garden, where David had proposed to her 4 years ago. Every anniversary they returned. Ordered the same wine, shared the same creme brulee, laughed over the same stories. Tonight would be her first time, going alone with Lila, keeping a promise she whispered at David's grave. I'll keep our traditions alive, baby. I'll raise her with love, with dignity, and with you still in our hearts. She dressed Lila in a soft peach-colored dress, tied with a tiny bow. The baby giggled and kicked her feet. Ready to have fancy dinner with Mama? Alana whispered. A soft knock on the door startled her. It was her neighbor, Mrs. Ellison, a gentle 70-year-old widow who adored Lila. You look lovely, my dear, she said warmly. Going somewhere special? Alana nodded. Maisonverne. Mrs. Ellison's smile faded slightly. Be careful there, sweetheart. That place? Well, let's just say they're not kind to everyone. Alana brushed it off politely. It'll be fine. But even as she said the words, something uneasy flickered in her chest. An hour later, she arrived at the restaurant's valet circle. The doorman greeted wealthy couples with warm smiles. Until he saw Alana, his smile thinned, almost vanished. But he opened the door anyway. The lights were warm. The air smelled like rosemary and butter. Violins played softly. It should have felt beautiful. But instead, it felt like walking into a room where someone had already decided you didn't belong. And at the center of it, all behind a polished podium, stood Heather Collins, twirling her check-in pen like a queen holding a scepter. Alana didn't know it yet, but her life was about to shift from quiet grief to a storm so loud the entire nation would hear it. But the moment Heather saw Alana walking toward that podium with Lila in her arms, she didn't see a doctor. She didn't see a mother. She saw something else entirely. And that dangerous judgment set everything on fire. The atmosphere inside Maisonverne carried the kind of polished elegance that whispered wealth, the clinking of crystal, soft violin music, murmured laughter from tables filled with people who looked as though they'd been dining there for decades. But as Dr. Alana Brooks stepped inside with baby Lila nestled against her shoulder, all that elegance twisted into something sharp, something cold. Conversations hushed. Eyes followed her, not with curiosity, but with judgment. Still, Alana walked forward with quiet dignity, behind the podium. Heather Collins straightened her posture as if preparing for a confrontation she'd already decided she'd win. Her lip curled the moment she noticed the infant. Can I help you? She asked, dragging out each word like it tasted bitter. Yes, Alana replied calmly. I have a 7:30 reservation, Dr. Alana Brooks. Heather didn't blink. Didn't check the computer. Didn't even pretend. We don't have any reservation for you. Alana swallowed. I have the confirmation email right here. She lifted her phone gently, carefully, so she wouldn't jostle Lila. Heather leaned forward, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You people always think you can just walk in anywhere and demand special treatment. Alana's grip tightened around her phone. I'm simply asking you to check your system. Heather smiled, but it wasn't a real smile. Our system works just fine. Maybe you mistyped your name while booking. Happens all the time with certain guests. Someone near the bar gasped. Alana forced herself to remain steady. Could you please check your list? Just once. Heather exhaled loudly, as if deeply inconvenienced, then tapped the screen with exaggerated annoyance. A beat passed. Another. Then she turned the screen toward Alana. A blank space. An empty line where her name should have been. Except Alana instantly noticed the tiny indentation on the screen. Someone had just deleted something. Heather, Alana whispered. You erased it. Heather's eyes widened slightly, caught, but she recovered in an instant. That's a serious accusation, she said loudly, so nearby tables could hear. You're causing a disturbance. Baby Lila whimpered softly. Alana adjusted her. I'm asking for what I reserved. Nothing more. Heather's expression twisted. Look around. Do you see anyone here? Carrying babies? Wearing discount dresses? This is an upscale establishment, not a charity soup kitchen. A server nearby choked on his drink. Just then, Mark Rowley, the manager, stepped out from the dining room. Heather waved him over dramatically. Mark, this woman is trying to force her way in without a reservation. Alana held up her phone again. Sir, hi. Heather's hand shot out. Crack. She slapped the phone and Alana's hand so hard that the sound ricocheted through the restaurant. The baby screamed. The diners froze. Phones rose into the air, cameras capturing everything. Heather stepped closer, her voice now a threat disguised as policy. Touch my podium again, and I'll have you escorted out for trespassing. Alana stared at her, stunned not by the slap, but by the ease with which Heather delivered cruelty. Something inside the room shifted. People who had been quiet began to murmur. The first lie had been told. The first act of violence delivered, and the night was only beginning, because the next thing Heather did wasn't just cruel. It was dangerous. It was the lie that would call the police and put baby Leila directly in the line of fire. The room had fallen into that tense silence that only exists when something deeply wrong has just happened. Baby Lila cried against Dr. Alana Brooks's shoulder, tiny, terrified, innocent. But Heather Collins wasn't shaken. If anything, the slap had emboldened her. She turned slightly, angling her body toward the diners, toward the phones recording, putting on a performance polished by years of entitlement. Her voice suddenly softened, trembling dramatically. Mark. I'm frightened, she said, clutching her wrist. She grabbed me. She tried to force her way past me. Mark Rowley froze. His face twitched, torn between morality and fear of losing his job. Heather. I didn't see any. You never see anything, Heather snapped quietly. But with enough venom to make Mark fall silent, Alana took a step forward. That is a complete lie. You slapped me in front of everyone. A woman at a nearby table raised her phone higher. I have it on video. Heather's eyes darted toward the cameras and something ugly flashed inside them. She made a decision, a dangerous one, without warning. She snatched her phone from the podium and dialed 911. The operator answered. And Heather transformed. Her voice cracked. She breathed shakily, imitating fear with disturbing ease. Yes. I need officers at Maison Verne right away, she said. There's a woman here causing a disturbance. She tried to assault me. She's refusing to leave. And she's holding a baby. Gasps erupted. She's shaking the baby, Heather added, layering lie upon lie. I'm afraid for the child's safety. Please hurry. Alana felt her stomach drop. Her hand tightened protectively around Lila. You're lying, she whispered. You're putting my daughter in danger. Heather hung up slowly, turning back to her with triumph gleaming in her eyes. You should have walked away, she said coldly. Now officers will handle it. The elderly couple who'd been watching stood up. That woman is telling the truth, the elderly man said firmly, pointing at Alana. We saw everything. That hostess hit her first. Heather rolled her eyes. Sir, please sit down. You must be confused. We are not confused, the elderly woman snapped. And we're recording every second. Heather's jaw tightened. The servers had stepped out of the kitchen, now eyes wide, phones out. Even the dishwasher stood frozen in the doorway, still. Heather doubled down. You're all misinterpreting things, she insisted. You don't understand who we allow in this establishment. Alana stared at her, stunned at the boldness of the hatred before her. She wanted to walk away, to protect Lila, but walking away meant letting Heather win. Letting a lie become truth. Baby Lila whimpered softly, burying her face in Alana's chest. Alana kissed her forehead. I'm right here, sweetheart. Outside, faint sirens began to echo through the street, growing louder with every passing second. Phones lifted. Witnesses braced themselves. Mark looked like he wanted to vanish, and Heather smiled, because she truly believed the police would arrive, believe her lies, and take Alana down. She had no idea how wrong she was. The sirens were growing louder, and the moment the officers walked through that door, Heather's lies would spark a confrontation far more explosive than she could imagine, especially when one officer reached for his gun the second he saw Alana. The sirens outside grew louder, shrieking through the upscale street like a warning. Inside Maison Verne, every fork stopped mid-air. Every phone pointed toward the front door. Every heartbeat seemed to sink in one collective, dreadful pause. Dr. Alana Brooks didn't move. She held baby Lila close, rocking her softly as the little girl whimpered into her shoulder. Then the glass door swung open. 2 officers stepped inside. One tall, stiff, jaw clenched stormed in first. His name tag read Officer Hawley. His cold, steely eyes scanned the room, instantly locking onto Alana, instantly hardening. The second officer followed slowly behind Officer Ruiz Younger, more cautious. His gaze drifted across the crowd, picking up the tension, the phones, the frightened baby. But Officer Hawley had already chosen his villain. Where is the suspect? He barked. Heather leapt forward like a stage performer hitting her cue. Officer! Thank God you're here. She gasped. That woman, she assaulted me, threatened me, and she's endangering that baby. Ruiz frowned. Ma'am, whose baby? Hers? Heather hesitated, but only for half a second. I don't know. I'm not even sure the baby is hers. The room erupted with outrage. A woman shouted, "Oh, come on, she's lying." We all saw what happened. Officer Hawley ignored them entirely. He marched straight toward Alana, hand already resting on his holster. Ma'am, he said sharply, step away from the podium and come outside, now. Alana's heart quickened. Her voice stayed calm. Officer, I'm the one who was assaulted. I have witnesses. I said step outside. Hawley snapped, moving closer. You can explain yourself after you comply. Ruiz lifted a hand gently. Hawley, man, let her talk. I've got this. Hawley cut him off without looking back. You can either follow orders or wait in the car. Ruiz swallowed hard. He stayed silent, but his eyes stayed locked on Alana and Lila. Alana felt her palms sweating. Officer, please lower your tone. You're frightening my daughter. Then put the baby down, Hawley said. On the ground. Gasps echoed around the restaurant. Alana instinctively stepped back. No, she's 6 months old. She can't stand on her own. Put her down or I will take her, Hawley said. His hand gripping his cuffs now. Baby Lila began crying again, louder this time. Ruiz finally stepped forward, unable to stay quiet. Hawley, this doesn't feel right. The crowd is recording. There are witnesses, videos. Oh, so now you're suddenly an expert? Hawley hissed. Fine. You take the report after I clear the threat. The threat? Someone shouted. She's a mother holding her baby. But Hawley didn't care. He moved closer. Too close. Alana clutched Lila tighter. You're scaring her. Please, just listen. Hawley slammed his palm toward her diaper bag. What's inside this? Step back so I can search it. You have no probable cause, Alana said, voice trembling but steady. Hale's eyes narrowed. That's it, now. He grabbed her arm, not violently, but firmly enough to make the room erupt again. Hey, she didn't do anything. We have video. Officer, stop. Phone shot higher. Recording. Streaming. Ruiz stepped in front of Hollis, blocking him. Hale, stop. The cameras are everywhere. This isn't protocol. Hale's nostrils flared. This is exactly why I'm doing it. And right then, right there. The confrontation shifted, not because Hawley backed down, but because Alana lifted her chin and said quietly, Officer, I want to make my one legally allowed phone call. Right now. Ruiz blinked. She's right. Hawley froze. The crowd leaned in. Heather's face blanched. Alana tightened her grip on baby Lila, then reached slowly for her phone. And that one phone call would change everything. Because the man Alana dialed was only 8 minutes away, and when he heard what happened, he wasn't just furious. He was powerful. The restaurant had become a pressure cooker steam building. Walls tightening, every second more explosive than the last. Dr. Alana Brooks, holding baby Lila, lifted her phone with trembling hands. Not out of fear, out of fury, controlled only by her dignity. Officer Hawley hovered inches away, jaw tight, irritation twisting his features. Officer Ruiz watched cautiously, secretly hoping Alana's call would bring clarity, or backup that Hawley couldn't disrespect. The phone rang once. Twice. Then a voice answered, deep, steady, authoritative. Alana? You okay? Relief washed over her. Jonathan? I need you to come. Right now. A beat of silence. Then steel entered his tone. Where are you? Mason Vern. The hostess deleted my reservation, slapped me, then called the police claiming I endangered Lila. Silence again. He was processing, calculating. And the officers? Jonathan asked. One of them is trying to forcefully remove me. He's demanding I put Lila on the floor. Jonathan inhaled sharply. Do not move. I'm 8 minutes away. Jonathan, please hurry. I'm on my way. She hung up. Holly scoffed. You really think calling someone is going to fix this? His voice dripped with mockery. That's not how this works. Alana held him with a steady gaze. That depends on who I called. Whispers rippled through the restaurant. Heather, who had been standing proudly only moments ago, now fidgeted with her bracelet. Something in Alana's calm unsettled her. Meanwhile, Officer Ruiz stepped closer. Ma'am, who exactly is coming? Alana adjusted Lila's blanket. Someone who understands justice. Halle rolled his eyes. Fantastic. Can't wait. A tense 5 minutes passed. In that time, witnesses quietly approached Ruiz, showing him their footage. Videos, clear angles. Plain as day. Heather slapping Alana. Heather lying. Heather pretending fear. Ruiz's eyebrows lifted higher with each clip. By the fourth video, his face had fully hardened. He turned to Halle. Halle, we have a problem. Halle didn't budge. The only problem is her refusing orders. No, Ruiz said, voice firmer. The problem is nothing she's accused of is real. Everyone here is showing me the same footage. Hale's jaw twitched. Don't start with me. Protocol exists for a reason, Ruiz insisted, but Halle wasn't listening. He was glaring at the door, waiting to see who had the audacity to show up. Because outside, an engine suddenly rumbled loudly, a deep, powerful engine stopping sharply at the valet circle. The restaurant shifted. Heads turned. Even Heather's face drained of color. A tall man in a crisp charcoal suit stepped through the doorway. Broad shoulders. Confident walk. Eyes sharp enough to command any room. This was Jonathan Wright, but not the average Jonathan Heather expected. He wasn't just powerful. He was deputy attorney general of the state. Ruiz straightened. Immediately, Hale's expression cracked. Just a hair. Jonathan's gaze locked onto Alana. First, then on Halle, then on Heather. He didn't shout. He didn't argue. He simply said, who laid a hand on her? The room went still. Halle swallowed. Heather stepped back. Ruiz pointed subtly toward the podium. Jonathan's jaw tightened. All right, he said. Let's begin. Because Jonathan didn't just come to defend Alana, he came to expose every lie in that restaurant. And the first truth he revealed would terrify Heather to her core. The moment Deputy Attorney General Jonathan Wright stepped fully into Mason Vern, the atmosphere shifted like a storm cloud rolling over a quiet field. Power, real power, didn't need volume or aggression. It needed presence. And Jonathan had it. He approached Dr. Alana Brooks first, gently touching Lila's back. You okay? He asked quietly. Alana nodded. We're all right. For now. Jonathan exhaled slowly, then turned his eyes sharpening into weapons as they landed on Officer Halle. Which of you detained or threatened this woman? Halle stiffened. No one is detained, yet. Yet? Jonathan repeated, voice dangerously calm. You threatened to separate a mother from her 6-month-old child. In front of witnesses. Hale's jaw locked. Sir, with respect, we received a call about an endangered infant. Ruiz immediately stepped in. Jonathan, sir, every witness video shows the opposite. The report was false. The hostess, I can speak for myself, Heather snapped, but her voice trembled. Jonathan turned toward her with chilling precision. Good, he said. Then explain why every person here has the same footage. Showing you striking a guest. Heather's mouth opened, then shut. People in the room shifted. Phones already pulled up, videos paused at the exact frame. Heather's hand swinging. Alana flinching. The baby crying. Jonathan stepped closer to Heather. You made a false police report, he said softly. That's a felony in this state. Heather backed up until she hit the podium. I panicked. You thought what? Jonathan asked. That no one would challenge you? That no one here mattered enough to question your lies? Her face turned red. You're twisting this. She was aggressive. An elderly woman shouted from the corner, lies. We were watching the whole time. Her husband added, she never raised her voice once. Jonathan nodded toward the witnesses. I'll need each of your statements before I leave. Then he looked back at Heather. You said the baby was being shaken. Is that correct? Heather hesitated. One might interpret. Interpret? Jonathan interrupted. I am a prosecutor. I deal in facts, not interpretations. He turned toward Alana. May I? Alana shifted Lila slightly, letting Jonathan see. The baby was calm now, breathing softly against her mother's chest. Jonathan looked back at Heather. This child is clearly unharmed. And your claim that Alana endangered her is demonstrably false. Heather swallowed hard. I was just trying to protect the restaurant. No, Jonathan said. You were trying to keep someone out. Someone you didn't want dining here. The audience murmured. A few nodded solemnly. Heather's voice cracked. You're twisting everything. Jonathan leaned in just slightly. Then let's untwist it. He motioned to Officer Ruiz. Ruiz, gather statements and collect the videos. Hawley stepped forward, bristling. You don't command this scene. Jonathan turned slowly. No, he said. But I outrank you by several walls of the Capitol. And if you put your hands on this woman again, I will personally make sure you explain your actions to Internal Affairs by sunrise. The entire restaurant drew in a breath. Hawley flinched. For the first time, uncertainty cracked through his authority. Jonathan stepped back and addressed the room. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying calm. Justice will be served tonight. Then his eyes landed back on Heather, cold, unwavering. And we will start with you. Heather's lips trembled. Her facade was cracking. Her control? Gone out because Jonathan had just set the stage for something far bigger than a restaurant confrontation. He was preparing to expose everything. But Jonathan hadn't even revealed the biggest truth. Yet the truth about who actually owned Maison Verne. And how that revelation would turn Heather's world upside down. The restaurant's polished walls seemed to close in as tension thickened. Every diner leaned forward, breath held. Eyes locked on the unfolding confrontation like it was the climax of a courtroom drama. Heather Collins stood frozen behind her podium, shoulders tight, mascara threatening to smear. The fear she had once tried to project onto Alana was now eating her from the inside. But Jonathan Wright wasn't done. Not even close. He turned from Officer Hawley and walked slowly toward the entrance to the private dining room. His steps were calm, deliberate, each one echoing like a judge approaching the bench. A server, trembling slightly, stepped forward. Sir, the private room is occupied. I know, Jonathan said. He pushed the door open. The murmuring in the restaurant died instantly. Inside the private room sat an older gentleman in a tailored navy suit. Silver hair. Sharp eyes behind thin glasses. He looked up from his dinner calmly, as though he had been expecting this moment for years. Jonathan spoke with respect. Mr. Verne, I apologize for interrupting. The elderly man dabbed his lips with a cloth napkin and stood slowly. Leaning on his cane, gasps rippled across the restaurant. Because this wasn't just any man. This was Laurent Verne, the founder and owner of Maison Verne. The man whose name sat on every golden menu, whose signature dish had earned 2 Michelin stars, whose family legacy defined the restaurant. Heather's face drained completely. Mr. Verne stepped into the main dining area, scanning the room. His eyes fell on Heather, then on Alana holding baby Lila. Jonathan addressed him gently. Sir, I believe you should hear what your hostess has done tonight. Heather stuttered. Mr. Verne, sir, I can explain. No. His voice was soft, but the command in it silenced the room. I will hear her first. He turned to Alana. My dear, what happened? Alana spoke succinctly, without anger in her tone, only truth. I had a reservation. She erased it. She slapped my hand while I was holding my baby. Then she called the police and told them I was endangering my child. Mr. Vern's jaw twitched. Jonathan added, "Every witness here has video evidence supporting her." Heather finally snapped. "Why are we believing her word over mine? She's not the type of person." "Stop." Mr. Vern's cane struck the floor, the crack echoing like a lightning strike. The old man's voice trembled, not with age, but with fury. "Heather Collins, you have disgraced my establishment. You have shamed my family's name. And worst of all, you endangered a child." Heather stumbled backward. "Sir, I've worked here for 9 years, and in 9 seconds," he said coldly, "you have undone everything." Officer Ruiz stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Sir, we're taking statements now. There may be grounds for charges." Mr. Vern nodded deeply. "I insist on it." He turned to Alana and his expression softened like warm candlelight. "My daughter was a pediatric nurse," he said quietly. "She passed 10 years ago. I would never allow harm to come to a mother or a child in my home." Alana's eyes glistened. Then Jonathan stepped beside her. Placing a firm hand on her shoulder, "Mr. Vern," he said, "there's something else you should know." The restaurant leaned in. Jonathan's voice lowered. Slicing through the tension, "Alana was one of the surgeons who saved your granddaughter's life last year." The entire room gasped. Heather nearly collapsed, and Mr. Vern froze. Tears gathered in his eyes. My little Camille?" Alana nodded gently. "Yes, sir." Silence fell. A heavy, emotional silence. Mr. Vern reached for her hand, voice choking. "You will never be mistreated in my restaurant again." Heather's fate was sealed. But Jonathan wasn't finished, because exposing the truth about ownership was only step 1. Because now that the truth was out, Jonathan had one final revelation, one that would not only end Heather's career, but put Officer Halle directly under investigation before the night was over. A hush fell over Mason Vern, the kind of thick, breathless silence that comes right before a verdict. Heather stood limp behind the podium, mascara streaking, pride shattered. Officer Ruiz kept gathering witness statements. And Officer Hale, who had walked in with swagger, now stood unnaturally still, jaw tight, eyes shifting nervously as the truth closed in around him. But Jonathan Wright wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. He stepped forward, positioning himself between Halle and Alana, deliberate, protective, calm like a seasoned prosecutor walking into closing arguments. "Now," Jonathan said quietly, "let's talk about you, Officer Halle." The officer bristled. "I responded to a call. I followed procedure." Ruiz glanced up sharply. "No, you didn't." Halle shot him a glare. Jonathan tilted his head. "You received a report of an endangered infant, correct?" "Yes," Halle replied firmly. "And you assessed the situation by what? Immediately reaching for your holster? Ordering a mother to put a 6-month-old baby on the floor? Ignoring witnesses? Ignoring your partner?" Hale's lips tightened. "Sir, I made a judgment call based on the threat level." Jonathan stepped closer. "Show me, right now. What exactly was the threat?" The crowd murmured. Phones pointed again. Some people even stepped aside so Jonathan could gesture toward Alana standing there with baby Layla, resting peacefully against her shoulder. Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "Well, I'm waiting." Halle swallowed. Ruiz exhaled slowly. "Halle, she wasn't a threat. You escalated." Halle snapped. "Oh, so now you're throwing me under the bus too?" But Jonathan cut in, voice sharp. "This isn't about buses. This is about the fact that you attempted to separate a mother from her infant without cause. That is not only a violation of procedure, it's a violation of basic humanity." The room nodded. An older man near the bar muttered, "About time someone said it." Heather, trembling, tried to shift the blame. Officer Halle wouldn't have come if she hadn't. Jonathan raised a single hand. "Heather Collins," he said, "you filed the false report." But Officer Halle acted on it in a way that was reckless, biased, and dangerous. Hale's temper snapped. "You don't know anything about me." Jonathan's eyes narrowed. "Oh, I know enough." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small folder, one he had grabbed from his car before coming in. He opened it slowly. Deliberately. Internal Affairs has already flagged you for 2 prior use of force complaints, Jonathan said. 1 still pending. 1 marked unresolved due to lack of body cam footage. The restaurant gasped again. Holly went pale. And tonight, Jonathan continued, you walked into an upscale restaurant and within seconds tried to escalate force against an unarmed mother holding a baby. Ruiz stepped forward, ashamed. I tried to calm him. He wouldn't listen. Jonathan nodded. And that failure to listen nearly put an infant in danger. Hale's voice broke with anger. She wasn't following orders. Jonathan stepped closer, so close Holly couldn't look away. She was following every order. You just didn't like who you saw in front of you. The words hung heavy in the air, inescapable, undeniable. Officer Holly looked around the room, scanning the phones, the witnesses, the truth closing in. He clenched his jaw, fury trembling under his skin, but he said nothing, because everything was already said. Jonathan turned to Ruiz. Officer Ruiz. Place Officer Holly on administrative hold until Internal Affairs arrives. Holly flinched. You can't do that. But Ruiz spoke with new strength. Yes, I can. He reached for Hale's radio. And for the first time all night, Holly didn't resist. He knew his career was hanging by one frayed thread. But Jonathan wasn't done. He turned toward Heather, silent, trembling, defeated. Now, he said softly, let's finish what we started. Because the final consequence, what Mr. Verne chose to do with Heather, and what Internal Affairs decided about Hale, would leave the entire restaurant stunned and give Alana a redemption she never expected. The restaurant felt different now, lighter somehow. The tension that had once filled every corner had thinned into a relieved hum. Conversations were whispers. Cameras still rolling. Every diner waited, breath held, for the final moment of justice. Heather Collins stood behind the podium, hands shaking so badly she had to grip the edge to remain upright. Her arrogance had drained away, leaving only fear. Officer Ruiz kept Officer Holly at a distance. Hale's face was tight, eyes darting toward the door as though looking for escape. He knew he was finished, he just didn't know how loudly the fall would echo. Meanwhile, Mr. Laurent Verne, cane in hand, moved toward Heather with slow, purposeful steps. Heather, he said quietly, for 9 years I trusted you to welcome guests to my home with grace. Heather's eyes filled with tears. I made one mistake. No, Mr. Verne corrected, voice trembling with disappointment. You made a choice. A cruel one. The diners murmured in agreement. You humiliated a mother, he continued. You endangered her child. You lied to law enforcement. Then he paused, his voice softening with the weight of personal pain. And worst of all, you mistreated the doctor who saved my granddaughter's life. Heather's shoulders crumpled. Sir, please. I was stressed. People were rude. You are fired, Mr. Verne said simply. Effective immediately. Heather collapsed against the podium in shock. Security approached, gently escorting her away as she sobbed. But Mr. Verne wasn't done. I will personally recommend charges for the false police report, he added. The room erupted in quiet. Gasps justice finally finding its voice. Heather stumbled as security led her out. No more power. No more podium. Just consequences. Jonathan turned toward Officer Holly next. Holly, he said evenly, Internal Affairs is en route. You will answer for your actions tonight. Hale's voice cracked. It was a misunderstanding. No, Jonathan replied. It was misconduct. Ruiz finally found his courage. Holly, hand me your badge. A sharp inhale rippled through the room. Holly hesitated, but Ruiz didn't blink. Slowly, painfully, Holly unpinned his badge, placed it in Ruiz's open palm, then handed over his weapon, a career ending in front of dozens of witnesses. Holly breathed heavily, rage and shame fighting inside him, but he was powerless now. He was escorted outside to wait for Internal Affairs. Jonathan finally turned back to Dr. Alana Brooks. You handled all of this with grace, he told her. You protected your daughter. You told the truth. And you refused to let someone's prejudice define you. Alana exhaled shakily. I just didn't want anything to happen to Lila. Mr. Verne stepped closer, his old eyes softening as he looked at the baby. You honored your reservation, my dear, he said warmly. And you honored your husband by continuing your tradition. He gestured to the Mater D, who had appeared from the back, terrified he'd be blamed for anything. Table 14, Mr. Verne announced. Prepare it immediately. And bring the house special. Tonight, Dr. Brooks is our guest of honor. Diners clapped softly, some with tears in their eyes. Alana blinked, overwhelmed. I never wanted a scene. Jonathan smiled faintly. You didn't create one. They did. And you, Mr. Verne added, showed more dignity than the entire staff combined. A server appeared with a baby high care. Gently placing it beside Alana. Jonathan whispered, You ready to eat? Alana finally smiled. For the first time tonight? Yes. She kissed Layla's forehead, breathed deeply, and walked toward table 14. As she sat down, violins played once more. Warm light filled the room. The evening, once ruined, had turned into something else entirely, a moment of justice. A night of truth. A victory carved from courage. Mason Verne would never forget it, and neither would the millions who would soon watch the videos online.